The deafening sound of police sirens cut through the tense, violent air of the parking lot, followed by the screeching of tires and the rapid slamming of car doors. The gang leader cursed loudly, dropping his iron pipe as he and his men scrambled to escape, only to be immediately intercepted and tackled to the ground by the arriving officers. But neither Dad nor Kyle paid any attention to the arrests. Kyle was frozen on the concrete, his hands hovering over Mom's limp body, trembling violently. He stared at the rapidly expanding pool of crimson blood seeping into the gray asphalt beneath her. The cruel, hateful words he had just spat at her seemed to echo back, slapping him across the face with agonizing force. Dad was already on his knees, his face completely devoid of color. He pulled Mom's head onto his lap, his usually steady hands shaking as he pressed them against her pale cheek. "Chloe," he choked out, his voice cracking. "Chloe, wake up. Look at me." Mom's eyelashes fluttered, her face contorted in pain. She weakly reached down to clutch her stomach, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan. Baby. Protect the baby, Mommy. Mommy, it hurts. It hurts so much. Don't sleep, Mommy, please." My tiny, terrified voice echoed in the minds of both men. It wasn't cheerful or cheeky anymore. It was a weak, agonizing whimper that seemed to tear straight through their hearts. "Ambulance!" Dad roared at the police officers, his voice raw with a desperation he hadn't felt in 2 lifetimes. "Get an ambulance now." Kyle finally snapped out of his shock, dropping to his knees beside Dad. He looked at Mom's blood-stained dress, then at the wooden stick she had brought to defend them. She hadn't run away to save herself. She had run to find a weapon, to call for help where there was a signal, and she had come back for them. For him. She took the hit for me, Kyle mumbled, his voice hollow, as if his entire worldview was crumbling right before his eyes. "Uncle is so silly," my faint voice whimpered, growing weaker by the second. Mommy always loved Uncle. She said Uncle was her little brother. But my tummy hurts so much now. "Daddy, am I going to become a little ghost again?" "No." Dad suddenly shouted, startling the approaching paramedics. He grabbed Mom's cold hand, tears finally breaking through his composed facade, spilling down his cheeks. "No, you are not becoming a ghost. Do you hear me? You stay right here. I won't let anything happen to either of you." The paramedics quickly loaded Mom onto the stretcher, rushing her into the back of the ambulance. Dad climbed in right behind her, refusing to let go of her hand. Kyle followed, his own injuries completely forgotten as he stared blankly at the flashing red lights. The hospital corridor was a suffocatingly tense environment. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Eleanor arrived shortly after, their faces pale with shock. Vivian was with them, having perfectly timed her arrival to seem concerned and breathless. "Oh my God, Ethan! Kyle!" Vivian gasped, rushing forward. "Are you two okay?" I tried to find help. I ran to the main road, but she stopped, her eyes darting to the flashing red IN surgery sign above the operating room doors. She expertly masked the flicker of malicious satisfaction in her eyes. "Is Chloe? Is she? She's in surgery," Kyle said, his voice entirely devoid of its usual warmth when speaking to Vivian. He didn't look at her. He was staring at his own blood-stained hands. "She took an iron bar to the back to protect me." Vivian's face stiffened for a fraction of a second. She did what?" "She saved us, Vivian," Dad said, stepping out of the shadows of the corridor. His eyes were cold, sharp, and terrifyingly clear. "She ran out of the parking lot to get a signal to call the police, found a weapon, and came back to fight off a dozen armed men." Dad slowly turned his gaze to Vivian. "And you, Vivian? You said you were going to check on her. But you didn't, did you? You hailed a cab and left us all there to die?" Vivian panicked, stepping back, her tears immediately welling up. "Ethan, no. I was terrified. I was trying to find a security guard." "Save it," Grandpa Richard's booming voice interrupted. He stood tall, leaning heavily on his cane, his sharp eyes scrutinizing Vivian with a terrifying intensity. "The police reviewed the security footage at the intersection. You got into a taxi and went straight to a high-end